It's Spoilerin time, a fantastic show born of another show called Cordkillers. On Cordkillers, we figure out how to watch things, what streaming services, what devices, then we watch them and we talk about them here. This week, we will be spoiling Miami Vice, Season 1, Episode 1. Jimmy Smits, the guest star on this episode. We're also starting to watch Squid Game and talk about it. So Season 1, Episode 1 of that, and What We Do in the Shadows, Season 3, Episode 9. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Not only that, I'm very much on the edge of my seat about how smart of an experiment we're pulling with this Miami Vice stuff. We'll get to it. What do you want to jump in with first?
I think let's start with Miami Vice. I don't know if that was the order you meant to have it in, Bryce, but I feel like Miami Vice is where we should start.
Let's do it.
This is more Miami Vice than I had bargained for. I did not realize it was a 2-hour. It's not exactly 2 hours because it's broadcast, but close to a 2-hour movie premiere. I remember that now, that it was billed that way, like it's a movie on TV, Miami Vice, etc.
Yeah, and thank goodness we watched this episode for Jimmy Smits, because boy,
Where was he?
Those 40 seconds that he was in it
17.
were.
Who was he? I didn't even catch him.
He was the dude doing the deal that got blowed up.
That was Jimmy Smith.
That was Jimmy Smith.
Stupid show. Stupid.
John Johnson's partner.
That's very funny and very stupid. Jimmy. Aw.
This,
They made him the West Wing president. They blew him up. Okay.
he was Bail Organa.
Yeah. He had a whole series in Jericho.
Yeah,
So there
and
you go.
his
That's our
dialogue.
thoughts
Not
on
only that,
Miami Vice.
not only that,
Drug
his
keeper.
dialogue was like, "Oh man, I just want to get this drug deal over with, so I can get back to my wife. She's at 5 months of pregnancy, and I want to be a good dad. So let's finish up this drug deal."
I mean, gosh, I would hate for you to have a sad visit at the diner to my wife, who's 5 months pregnant, still working at the diner after I got blowed up accidentally. Hope that.
It was that. Okay, that whole segment is this close to being the
more
Always
time
Sunny
with
in
the wife.
Philadelphia version of Lethal Weapon.
I watched the segment of him in the car with the police chief and then going to the wife to tell her that her husband died. I probably watched that stretch of time about 4 or 5 times because I kept falling asleep in the middle of this hour and a half movie.
Tom,
A good
what-
scene though. A good good scene.
Before anything else, I do want to give massive credit to the fact that they were launching this vehicle knowing, I believe, that Don Johnson was already their prepackaged superstar, and yet they held him back for like 30 minutes. And it's like, it's all Tubbs' story, and for what it's worth, that's a decent enough twist that he's not even, the guy he's pretending to be. He's, posing as his brother because he wants to avenge and whatever, and these people who don't
great
like
twist.
each other.
Great twist. I liked it.
Okay, good. We're back to unironically liking it. Good.
Okay, yeah. Well, because there's a couple of things. One is Miami Vice did not bill this as Jimmy Smith's special guest. Right. It's entirely unfair for us to be approaching it that way. He was not Jimmy Smith's yet.
He's not even the top billed, also featuring in the credits even.
Yeah, at all. You had mentioned something, Brian, about they kept playing the theme, and so I kept waiting for it. I don't think they did. I think they just kept playing theme-like music as the soundtrack.
If that's the case, I missed it because, of course, the opening theme was the opening theme. But at the end, I could have sworn they played the whole theme again, or maybe it was midway through where he was driving, chasing alongside his own boat. Like, you're not taking my boat.
They do use it as like an insert, like a music cue there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other moments in this episode where they've got like licensed pop music as like, we're really going to be listening to the song for a little bit here, which is kind of a nice change of pace for TV. But I was expecting a more heavy hand when you told us about that last week.
Well, I just kept, the reason I bring it up is I kept like in the boat chase, right? When we don't know who Tubbs is and they're chasing him in the boat, I was like, oh, here comes the part where they play the theme. And I was like, that's not that's not exactly the theme. That's just a thing that kind of sounds like the theme. And then
I might have been totally
trying to
fooled.
tell, do I not remember what the theme is like, or is this the theme? Like, because it was so close, it was just they were using that boom, boom, boom thing.
Do you want me to check real quick? I can find out. It's because
I mean, I believe
because I think the odds are 50-50 of me.
I think either way, it's weird, right? Like that's my point. Is like even if it is the fact that I couldn't recognize it as the theme when it was, or that there was something so close that I was distracted by it. I don't know. There were some parts of this that I felt were unusually modern. In some ways, things I wouldn't have expected from a series this old. Casting decisions, like having some sections in Spanish without subtitles, stuff that's pretty normal now, but I think might have been a little edgy for the time on broadcast TV.
Yeah, especially if you view it in the historical context, like. Before Miami Vice, I can't think of any time that one character would say to another, "Yeah, man, I've got the $100 million. Do you have the cocaine that we're all going to do?" Like people just didn't talk that way on television.
Yeah, it was definitely edgy in that way. And like you said, Bryce, the twist, I didn't know that. I don't know, remember whether I watched this or not when it came out, but I thought I knew the backstory of Tubbs, and I'd forgotten it if I ever did know it.
And to be honest, there's a couple of, and again, part of me wants to be eye-rolly about it, but for the time, that moment that Tubbs gets on the boat and Crockett pops him one, and then Tubbs, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have done that." And then he's like, "So you feel like whatever it is," and he's like, he balances the universes by punching him back one. I mean, it's like, I believe that these two don't exactly dig each other and aren't getting along in a way that I wouldn't have expected in 80s, in a time when Hunter, Knight Rider, that this is what they were up against. You didn't see teams operate this way.
And they really, really don't like each other, right? That to the point where you get the classic, like, "I can't work with this guy, boss. You can't pair us together" sort of situation, but you believe it.
And I think it works really well, especially in the kind of the climax or the finale, the end of it, where he's, got the gun pointed at the guy, and the guy's like, "You're a cop, you can't shoot me." And you know what? Like, I think they that moment really, got me to lean in of like, well, he's not a cop. He's really looking for vengeance. Is he going to do it? And they even kind of play it like, oh, maybe he dreamed of doing it, but that really got me to be like, okay, this is a really unique partnership between the two of them.
I would also early on with Tubbs, I believe. Please tell me I'm getting this right. Like they have him sort of remembering his brother dying in his arms, which they
don't show us in the first act, I think.
Not in the first act, but early on, like he's getting ready to pull some mean, angry Tubbs stuff, and all of which is to say a lot more brutal than the fare that we were accustomed to on the night after the Golden Girls.
Fair, absolutely fair. I did like that Tubbs. I know he's the co-star, right? So I know he's not a drug dealer, but they're like trying to make you think like, hey, maybe he's just part of this life. Maybe he's a rival gang. When, if you haven't seen this before, maybe you don't know. And then they reveal that he's a cop, and you're like, see, he's a cop. I knew he was a cop. And then they pull actually, he's not. And that guy that died in his arms, not a fellow cop, his brother, who was a cop on the Vice squad, and he was just a beat cop. Yeah, I thought that was a good plot. I could see that. I know they remade this, but I could see that being remade better.
I know I always point it out, but my favorite new cinematic fetish is seeing hose down sets. Like, for some reason, but at least in Miami, it makes sense because it rains every 20 minutes there.
Yeah, right.
But there are so many like by the numbers aspects to this, which I think it's rather brilliant if what you want to do is position it as, look, it looks like a movie. This is a movie that happens to be on television every single Friday night. In which case it's like, well, then yeah, what you do is you do everything by the numbers like a movie would.
Yeah, for sure. They use the movie vocabulary to the point of being, I think it might get lost on us that this is shot in Miami, right?
I'm assuming so.
I have no idea, to be honest.
I mean, if it wasn't shot in Miami, they did a great enough job working in Miami
B-roll. I wouldn't be.
I believed it was shot in Miami.
100%. They sent a B-roll crew to Miami to get nothing but
Web and Magic
bikinis and
that I was right. It was shot in Miami, and that's again something. Most everything was shot in LA back then, and so doing it on location was a bigger deal then than it is now.
Yeah, Meryl Barrow saying the whole thing was in Miami, which
5
is
seasons.
Yeah, thank you, Meryl.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a fine film, like a fine pilot, like start to the show. Long in the tooth. Hard to ignore that because there's definitely a 60-minute version of this in there. There's a 44-minute version of this show in this episode. A
wonderful lesson in filmmaking that also happened to be a very popular television show in the 1980s.
Yes. All right. Any other thoughts on Miami Vice?
No, but I hope that every time we watch another episode, the star that we're looking for is like Waldo. Like we're happy when we find him for any amount of time.
Also, yes, like big gets music wise, right? Meryl's mentioning In the Air Tonight. There's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Like kind of a strong.
Also, Who's Watching Me?
Somebody's watching me.
Yeah.
In the Air Tonight was debuted on this. I do remember
kidding.
That. Wow. This was a big deal of like, this is the Phil Collins song from Miami Vice, In the Air Tonight.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
All right. Next week. So you should know we are not going to watch every single episode of Miami Vice. We are going to skip around, but we're not skipping around yet. Next week's attempt to find the guest star is Ed O'Neill in episode 2. So we will be watching episode 2 of Miami Vice, season 1, episode 2, with guest star Ed O'Neill. Guest Ed O'Neill. Is he a star? We don't know.
Not yet. This is what made him a star, dude.
That's our discussion of Miami Vice, season 1, episode 1. All right, let's talk about Squid Game, episode 1. This is my second viewing of Squid Game. I've seen the entire run once. What about you, Brian?
First time.
So we got first impressions from Brian. Bryce?
This is I watched this episode a second time, but I have not gotten past the first episode. So I'm caught up.
So it's your second viewing of this, but from now on it won't be.
Yeah.
Also, if we're doing disclosures, dubs or subs?
Oh, good point. I am doing subtitles. The English subtitles, not the closed captioning.
I accepted whatever I was served, and I was really surprised that Netflix thought I was the type of person that wanted a dubbed version with closed captioning subtitles on it.
I am watching the dub. I actively picked to watch the dub.
Okay.
This seems like a cool show. I don't need to keep my focus on it for 44 minutes every week. I think I'll be just fine.
Before we go forward, the dubs I think are actually quite good with the translations. Like watching it out of the corner of my eye, because I drifted a little bit here or there, I was just like, wait, it looked like he exactly said the syllables at the exact same time. And there's an art to conveying certain things and making sure that it looks close enough. I thought they did a tremendous job on that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of hubbub about
the dub.
The subs, the dub sub, dub. But I think it's fine. I'm used to subs and dubs, so I'm aware that there's changes, when you translate something. But I think Netflix has generally done a pretty good job of getting good dubs.
Yeah, the only thing I know about the dub sub hubbub is that the dub is made to fit the mouth movements.
Right.
To your point, Brian. And so the closed captioning isn't as good as the subtitles.
Right.
The subtitles are meant to translate correctly, the spirit of what is being said. So there's a lot of people saying, well, you should have the English subtitles on if you want to see like an accurate rendition of what's being said in Korean, because the dub isn't always that, because it's trying to match the action.
The first time I ever noticed that was when they didn't do that, because you're right, all of the subtitles do match what the dub says on this one. What was the Portuguese or Brazilian, the 5% or something?
Oh, 3%.
Yeah. That was the first time that
Another
I was
Netflix
really
show.
confused by the fact that it's like these words don't match because one was a translation and the other was the
closed captioning for the English dub. Yeah.
Right.
All right, let's get into talking about the show itself. On second view, I didn't remember how long it takes to get to the game. I realized that there's a lot of setup of our hero's story and where he's coming from and living with his grandma and being estranged from his wife, or I guess divorced, not estranged, and having that relationship with his daughter who loves him but understands that he's kind of a ne'er-do-well, and the secret about what's going to happen to the daughter, all of that. That's a K-drama of its own right there. And that's just the setup to get us to the game.
Tom, on my first viewing, I was really surprised at how long it took to get to the game. It seemed like they were just going out of their way to really spell it out that this guy's a piece of garbage.
Well, I mean, unless they do
unless
they do a bunch of flashbacks, I don't know, but unless they do a bunch of flashbacks, this is the only chance they'll probably get to do it based on what we see in this, them on probably a remote island somewhere. We're probably not going to get too much more of the family stuff until the end, would be my guess. But who knows?
Yeah, and I think
Tom does, I guess.
I think Netflix made this in partnership to work for a Korean audience. Like, they obviously hoped it would have some international appeal, and they did some things to set it up for that. But they were following the Korean drama playbook with the twist, right? And so I think they wanted you to get lulled into a false sense of like, oh, it's okay, it's a normal Korean drama. Wait, no, it's not. They're where? They're doing what? They're playing and they're getting shot. How was that portion? Because we saw red light, green light when we didn't know they got killed for failing. And so that played a whole lot different than this time, where it was still dramatic, but I knew it was coming.
Going in knowing what's what, man, visually, I think I can maybe describe 3 or 4 set pieces and cinematography setups that they did in the first half. But that second half, I could describe like 7. Like just the visuals were so gorgeous and over the top. And it's like, yes, I don't care if this makes any sense or not to arrange everybody in this manner. It's all I want to watch. The image of the joy on player 001, winning at red light, green light is phenomenal. The surreal MC Escher-esque nature of the one of the rooms that they go through, the subtlety with which they let you think you're outside, and they don't spell it out for you until the very end when they close the ceiling on it. But they let you go a long time before you figure out that outside is kind of outside, but just really well painted to match the sky and all that stuff. All of that, I felt.
Oh, I wonder if that's like a TV thing or something, because I could tell they paint it in it. The visual effect is so good. They get the color matching really, really well.
Correct.
But
correct.
You
could definitely tell.
You can tell after a minute, but yeah.
But even the fact that it took me 80 seconds before I realized it is very impressive. I thought it was very, very well done.
All right, I got 2 questions that, as someone who has seen the whole run, I want to know from y'all, that I want to track throughout this. The first is, who are your characters that you're invested in? Who are the characters that you're following? Who are the characters that you're picking up on, and what do you think of them?
I certainly noticed 001 because he just has this joy about him and seems to get it in a way that nobody else does. I am aware that Mr. Bullyman is going to be a character, whatever. So I'm like,
oh, the thug, yeah, the criminal.
Yes, not so cleverly named 101, The Room of Your Deepest Fears from 1984. 456, of course, is our main character. The one I care about the most, though, is the one whose number I don't yet remember, because he does something that he doesn't need to do when he reaches forward and grabs the back of 456 and saves him, and seems to ask nothing for it. Yeah, there's something to the street urchin who stole his money, or whatever. We'll find all that out. But nobody is more interesting than the proactive altruist who saves 456.
Did you notice that he is the only non-Korean?
Right, he seemed to be Indian or East
okay.
Asian.
You're right. Okay, now I do, but that is not something I would have noticed. But I assume would be very obvious if I lived in Korea.
Perhaps. And you'll get more. I won't say any more about where he's from, because you'll get more about that as the story goes on. But I think that's worth noting. And also, Street Urchin Girl, they make a point of pointing out that she's North Korean.
Yes,
right.
She escaped.
I did catch that.
And they killed the guy that she was like beefing with during Red Light, Green Light, right? Like the guy she was hiding behind. Didn't they?
They did not kill Thug Guy.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I thought he died. Okay. Well, never mind then.
I don't think.
Questions. That weird Pog game that they played, I assume that's a real game that people play?
Yeah, it's a kid's game.
Okay.
It's like
the flipping thing.
Yeah.
It is Pog. Yeah, no, you got it right. It's Pog.
And this is a thing. The guy who plays the game, who has the briefcase, he is the star of one of the biggest series ever in Korea called Goblin.
Got it.
So that's a stunt casting.
It would be like Regis Philbin showing up and doing that or something.
Or I'm trying to think of a big TV star, but Regis like Philbin. A huge TV star.
Regis Philbin.
No, like an actor, not a host of a late night talk show.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Regis Philbin.
I was rather pleased with that comparison. I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. It's like if Tom Cruise came on screen or
more like a David Schwimmer or somebody TV big.
Gotcha.
Although I think he's been in some movies. Anyway, stunt casting. I thought that was worth pointing out. The other question I have for you guys is, where do you think this is going next?
I up until just this very moment had assumed that everything going forward existed within the game construct. But if that is the case. If that is the case, it's really weird that they spent so much time on Chekhov's lighter in the form of the gun. If that gun doesn't show up and do anything later on, that would be an awful long amount of screen time that it's given.
I mean, I assume that just plays into when he meets the guy from Goblin, because he uses that in that moment, and they would have to strip it. Like he defends himself with it until he clicks it and this little fire comes out, and he was not really in danger.
Yeah.
I don't know if Chekhov would count that or not, but I do feel like that was like, oh, here's the gun.
Yeah, it was a literal gun.
Right. Here's a very weird thing for you to get out of a Crane game, and then a lot of time where repeatedly it's shown what it's used for and how good of a replica it is. It would be weird if they invested those 10 minutes and then never saw the gun again.
I think my guess in terms of where we're going, if only because I feel like I've seen a good number of like these dangerous game type genre shows, and the next big story would be, why are they here, or why would somebody do what benefit would somebody get out of setting this up, filming this, recording this? What's the bigger benefit here? And I think that'll probably be, I guess, a later thing in the show. But that's where my head gets into, where it's like right now we are in the surreality of this, and once we get acclimated to it, we will be untangling a conspiracy of some sort.
Right, because at this point they've made it very clear why these people would do it. Right, they're all in such desperate situations that they feel like, well, why not? Right, they didn't know they were going to get shot at, certainly, but why not? Take a waiver on this, but we don't know why the people are operating the game.
Yeah. So
anything else?
Along those lines, I think it's significant to point out that this is not like The Running Man, where everybody's familiar with the world's #1 game show, and it happens to be sadistic and awful.
Right.
Like, very clearly, this is bizarre to everybody participating, which does sort of limit the options as to, why it's happening.
And there's clearly a lot of money and time and secrecy into this. And so whatever the benefit for doing this is would have to be pretty big, but also hard to see. I also imagine, I feel like I need to rewatch this episode to watch the beginning scene, because we got the graphic with them doing, I'm assuming this is like a children's game called Squid Game, the box and triangle thing.
That's well known, I assume, or like Foursquare or Dodgeball.
It's actually a regional game, if I understand this understand it correctly. It's a little bit rarer, but yeah, it's a playground game, like a hopscotchish kind of game called Squid Game. And they mentioned that at the beginning. They're like, this is the squid, but you have to get to the top of the squid.
It kind of gets overshadowed pretty quickly.
They've made it up, and they're just telling us in this
world.
It's
a real game.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So I have to imagine there will probably be at least some symbolism with the mechanics of that Squid Game.
I see.
Among whatever we're doing here, but that's tough.
The one thing that you can see, if the squid from the playground game is a circle, a triangle, and a square.
Oh, and we see those on the masks of the operators.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
and also in
and
the opening credits
the
in Korean, they make it red with the circle. And
yeah.
I think there's something to this Squid Game.
What? Yeah, we think it's related to the Squid Game.
I think it's related
somehow.
to the Squid Game.
We've got you figured out, Tom.
We got this.
I don't want to give anything away.
We think we've got this one under control.
Take a break, Tom. We got this one.
I don't know. I'm not going to say one way or another. All right. That is Squid Game, episode 1. Let's talk about What We Do in the Shadows, season 3, episode 9, wherein Nandor tries to take the big sleep. What is it called? It's not called the big sleep.
Super sleep.
Super sleep. Thank you. And he just keeps getting woken up because people are visiting.
I have to stand corrected, because I think the vast majority of my complaints and confusions about this season were all intentionally leading up to this moment. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed seeing Colin Robinson running off with Laszlo and all that stuff. Thought it was a bit weird that they were always off together. Thought it was a bit weird that Nandor would do what he's doing. Boy, oh boy, did everything get very surprising and powerful when Nandor whoopsie doodle smashes the jello face of Colin Robinson. Wow, was I unprepared for that. Also, yes, it was great to see David Cross there. That was good.
Oh yeah, David Cross was fantastic. I thought it was funny, and the big reveal when Laszlo reveals that he's like, oh yeah, I've known he was gonna die. It's the only reason I've been nice to him. Like, I don't like the guy. It's like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Right? Yeah. Which was something that was annoying me. It's like, this is very un-Laszlo-like behavior.
Yeah. And it explains like Colin.
Like, oh, it really is a very un-Laszlo-like behavior for me.
And Colin has just been acting as a very strange character this season, to the point where I was like, are they like Flanderizing him? Are they just making him like a comic relief? And you get, no, he's actually like having some existential dread right now. So he
may not even know why, but he's winding down. Energy vampires only last 100 years. To which I was like, so how are they going to save dear Colin Robinson? And then, yeah, as you mentioned, Nandor sticks his head through the jello of Colin Robinson's brain, indicating that Mark Proksch won't be playing this Colin Robinson anyway.
I mean, maybe
he's in the credits for next week's episode.
Well, we have established that ghosts are a thing, so maybe he's a ghost? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a route. That would be an acceptable. I wouldn't be so shocked. I wouldn't be delighted, but it would be an acceptable route. Yeah.
And maybe he's got like super healing or something. Like we've spent this whole season saying like energy vampires, they're nothing like real vampires, aren't they? So like he's got to have like
you know what?
Rejuvenation thing.
I got a pitch for you. Do you remember the episode where he became middle management and became super powerful?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We know that energy vampires feed on the energy of other people, including vampires. Could you imagine the feeding frenzy if he's even the slightest bit alive that would come from a sincere funeral for their departed friend?
A boring funeral or
just
a long energy
them
drink.
all caring and crying and actually caring, and then like suddenly he's just godlike. I could totally see that.
Absolutely.
That's why they
good.
die every 100 years.
Good. My instinct is that he was going to rejuvenate somehow. Like maybe they die every 100 years, but always are reborn from the husk of their old self. And that would be the perfect way to explain it. That'd be the perfect way to do it. I love that.
Like they die for the purpose of feast. You have 100 years to matter just enough to enough people that when you die, you're able to come back. You're fully restored.
Oh, yeah. No, I think you may have nailed it, Brian. That's really good.
That's a good
In
one.
fact, it's so good, I might be disappointed if that's not it. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, the whole thing with the Worldwide Vampire Council coming and hanging out, funny stuff, good jokes, waking up Nandor
repeatedly,
sleep that you can apparently just like wake someone up from. The classic bit where Nandor's like, well, if you wanted me to pretend to be asleep, why didn't you just leave me asleep?
But he clearly like wakes up at the drop of a hat. So he did the right. Yeah.
This also gave them the opportunity to go back to the prison cell that they constructed for Guillermo at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, right.
Because
this is a direct continuation from last week.
That's correct. And I like the fact that Nandor is finally interesting, having a crisis, as they put it. I don't know that this episode itself was the best episode of the season, but I love what it did to the rest of the season. Like all of a sudden it changed. I want to go back and watch the whole season from the beginning.
Yeah, it's why you have to watch a full story, right? Sometimes you need to know the story to appreciate the early parts. Also, Donald Logue from Blade.
Yeah,
that was another little side. It was like a throwaway almost of like, oh yeah, I just love the lifestyle so much. When I was shooting Blade, I decided to become a vampire.
Well, and what's funny is Blade was a character in the like. Right. So it's like, wait, is Blade a movie or an actual guy in this world?
And when he says I love the lifestyle, you mean from Blade, the real Blade? Yeah. All right. Anything else on what we do in the shadows? I don't want it to end now.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited and sad. We have what? Just one more?
One more.
Yeah. Just next week. That is What We Do in the Shadows, season 3, episode 9. Like I said, folks, next week it's Miami Vice 102, the Ed O'Neill episode. Will be shorter. That's one thing we do know. We'll also be talking about What We Do in the Shadows 310 and Squid Game episode 2. You can support us and get these episodes early on Spoilerin time or on our Patreon, patreon.com/Cordkillers. We will spoil you again next time.
Entertainment Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.